The rain never really stopped in the Ardennes. It just faded in and out. Mist clinging to pine needles, mud swallowing boots, silence broken only by distant artillery. The American sniper section had been pinned down for 2 days. Every standard shot was impossible. Too many trees, too many broken beams from a bombed-out farmhouse ahead, and one German officer who knew exactly where to stand. He used the ruins like armor. Every time someone peeked, a machine gun burst answered back. That officer walked calmly behind shattered wooden beams, giving orders, confident, almost bored. "He's untouchable," one of the men muttered. Then the new guy spoke. He wasn't loud, didn't sound heroic, didn't even stand up. "If the beam gap is still open," he said quietly, "I can take him." Laughter followed. What gap? You mean that splintered mess? That's not an angle, that's luck." The lieutenant leaned over the map, annoyed. "We're not wasting ammo on guesswork." The sniper didn't argue. He just adjusted his scope and kept watching. Between 2 collapsed support beams, each no wider than a forearm, there was a finger-width opening. Not straight, not clean, but if the officer stepped exactly where he always did. Wind drifted left to right. Distance, 490 yards. Elevation drop, brutal. No textbook solution, only geometry, patience, and one impossible angle. The officer stepped forward again. The sniper whispered to himself, "Same pace, same pause." The lieutenant sighed. 5 seconds, then we pull back. 4, 3, 2. The officer turned his head to shout an order. The sniper exhaled and squeezed. The rifle didn't kick hard. It never did when he fired correctly. The sound cracked once, sharp, flat, then vanished into the fog. No one celebrated. No one even moved. At 490 yards, sound lied. Time stretched. The lieutenant already had his mouth open to shout, "Fall back!" Then the German officer stopped walking. Mid-step. Not a stumble, not panic, just stillness. His helmet tilted slightly, as if confused by the silence. A second passed. Then he collapsed sideways behind the broken beams. The machine gun went quiet. Someone whispered, "Did we?" The sniper never looked up from the scope. "Wait," he said. Through the narrow beam gap, dust still drifted. A rifle clattered against stone. A runner sprinted from the ruins, then froze, dragging the body back. No orders followed. No whistles. No return fire. The entire German line hesitated. The lieutenant slowly lowered his binoculars. That was impossible. The sniper finally lifted his head. "Not impossible," he replied. "Predictable." He reached for another round, but didn't chamber it, because he already knew. That officer had been the anchor, the rhythm, the confidence. And now, every enemy soldier behind those ruins understood one thing. They weren't safe anywhere anymore. The lieutenant exhaled. "Who taught you that angle?" The sniper wiped rain from the scope. "No one," he said. "I just noticed what everyone else ignored." From the far hill, movement began again. Different now. Slower. Careful. They had learned. And the sniper smiled. Just barely. The silence didn't last. It never does. 2 minutes after the officer fell, the German line came back to life. But not the way before. No shouting, no careless movement. They had understood. Someone down there wasn't shooting men. He was shooting patterns. A flare went up, then another. White light washed over the ruins, cutting through fog and rain, searching for a glint of glass, a shadow that didn't belong. The lieutenant hissed, "They're triangulating." The sniper was already shifting. He slid the rifle back an inch. Not fast, not loud. He knew what they'd do next. Counter-snipers would scan obvious angles. Machine guns would rake windows. Mortars would walk the tree line. But none of that mattered. Because the beam gap, the angle they laughed at, was now empty. He had never planned to fire twice from it. "Why move?" a young soldier whispered. "They don't know where you are." The sniper shook his head. "They know where I was." Another flare burst, this one closer. A bullet snapped into the stone wall inches above his helmet, too precise to be random. "They've got a good one," the lieutenant muttered. The sniper crawled backward, slow as a shadow, into a secondary position nobody else would have chosen. Lower ground, worse visibility, less cover, except for one thing. From there, the same ruined beams lined up again. Different angle, different math, but the same gap. Across the valley, German soldiers moved cautiously now. No officer stood still. No one used the ruins the same way twice. They were afraid of an angle they couldn't see. The sniper settled in, adjusted elevation, counted steps. He didn't need a shot, not yet. Fear was already doing the work, and somewhere in the German line, a report would soon be written. Enemy sniper demonstrates unconventional geometry-based firing solutions. All standard cover deemed unreliable. The lieutenant looked at him. "How many more like that can you make?" The sniper didn't smile. "As many as they keep repeating their mistakes." Night didn't bring safety. It brought clarity. The flares stopped. The artillery went quiet. And in that silence, someone on the other side was thinking. The sniper felt it before he saw anything. A pressure. The sense of being considered. "There's another one," he whispered. The lieutenant didn't ask how he knew. Across the valley, the German line shifted, not randomly, not nervously. Deliberately. One rifle shot cracked through the dark. Not aimed at him. Too clean. Too measured. A counter-sniper. "He's probing," the lieutenant muttered. The American sniper stayed still. He watched shadows instead of soldiers, gaps instead of bodies, places where no one should be watching. Then he saw it. A window in a half-collapsed barn. Not the obvious one, but the one behind a beam, where only a sliver of sight existed. Someone over there understood geometry too. Another shot snapped past, shaving stone. Closer. "Good," the sniper murmured. "Very good." He shifted his rifle by a fraction. Adjusted elevation, not for distance, but for anticipation. Because the enemy sniper had made one mistake. He reused the beam. Not the same gap, but the same idea. The American waited. Counted breathing patterns he couldn't hear. Timed pauses he could only guess. Then, movement. A shadow leaned just a little too long. The sniper didn't fire. Instead, he rolled a loose stone down the rubble behind him. A test. The German sniper fired instantly. Too instantly. The shot came from the barn. "Got you," the American whispered. He slid into position, aligned the ruined beams. An angle no training manual would recommend. Wind negligible. Distance brutal. Opening unforgiving. One chance. He exhaled. And this time the shot answered another rifle. Silence returned. No return fire, no follow-up. The lieutenant waited, then slowly raised his head. "You hit him?" The sniper stayed on the scope. "No," he said calmly. "I hit his confidence." Minutes passed. Then a helmet rolled out of the barn doorway, pushed by a shaking hand. White cloth followed. The hunt was over. Not because the sniper was better, but because he understood something the other man didn't. Angles don't kill. Patterns do. Dawn came slowly, like it was afraid to look at what the night had done. Mist lifted from the valley. The ruined beams stood exactly where they always had. Nothing looked different, but everything was. The German line pulled back before sunrise, not in panic, not chased. They withdrew cleanly, as if someone had made a decision no one argued with. The lieutenant watched them go through his binoculars. "They're done here," he said quietly. Behind him, the sniper finally relaxed his shoulders for the first time in days. No one cheered. No one slapped his back. They just looked at him differently now. Later that morning, in a half-standing farmhouse, the lieutenant filled out the after-action report. He paused over one line longer than the rest. Enemy officer neutralized at extreme range through non-standard structural opening. Subsequent counter-sniper engagement resolved without friendly losses. He looked up. "How do I write this angle?" he asked. The sniper thought for a moment. "Don't," he said. write why it worked. So the lieutenant changed the wording. Shooter identified repeated enemy movement patterns and exploited predictable use of cover. Shot executed through minimal visual gap previously considered unusable. By evening, the report was already moving up the chain. By the next week, copies would circulate quietly. No headlines, no medals, just notes in the margins of training manuals. Cover is only safe if it's not predictable. Gaps matter. Angles aren't fixed. Months later, another sniper in another forest would remember a sentence he didn't fully understand at the time. If everyone ignores an angle, that's the one worth checking, and somewhere in an archive, the shot at 490 yards would be reduced to ink and paper. But for the men who were there, it would always be remembered differently, as the moment they stopped laughing and started looking. The war moved on. New maps, new names, new ruins. The beams from that farmhouse eventually collapsed for good, wood rotting back into the earth. But the angle didn't disappear. Years later, in a quiet training facility far from the front, an instructor paused over an old, yellowed report. No photo, no medal citation, just a margin note written in pencil. Non-standard firing solution. Angle ignored by both sides. The instructor tapped the page. "This," he said, "is why you don't trust cover just because everyone else does." Recruits leaned forward. They wanted numbers, ballistics tables, rules. Instead, they got a story. About a gap no wider than a finger. About 490 yards no one believed in. About how confidence can be louder than armor. The sniper never gave interviews, never wrote memoirs. When asked once what made that shot possible, he answered simply, "They stood where they always stood." That lesson survived longer than the rifle, longer than the unit, longer than the war, because technology changes, weapons change, uniforms change. But patterns? Patterns repeat. And somewhere, in some other conflict, another soldier would lie behind cover everyone trusted, while someone else studied the gaps, not looking for a man, but for the angle everyone ignored.